Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. This time we delve into an era we haven't delved into yet on this series, and that is the era of the prequels, the prequel trilogy. Either you can think of it as 1999 through 2005, or you can think of it as 32 BBY through 19 BBY. What we're going to take a look at in this episode are the releases of The Phantom Menace. Bum, 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 love it or hate it. The first film now of the 6-film Star Wars saga that apparently George always intended, despite saying it's going to be one film, then 12 starting with A New Hope, and then, 9 with A New Hope is for a prequel and sequel trilogy with the classics in the middle, and of course, then saying that it's only a 6-film saga, then saying, I said that I wasn't going to make any more, not that nobody could make any more, and now there's going to be a sequel trilogy. However you want to look at it, however frustrating that can be, and however flawed this film is, it is the first film of the Star Wars saga as we know it today. Released in theaters in 1999, not released on home video until the next year. Now that's kind of a big deal, because when A New Hope was first released on VHS, it took 5 years. When Empire Strikes Back was released on VHS for the first time, it took 4 years. For Jedi, it took 3 years. For the special edition films, though, it took just a few months. From March, with the release of Return of the Jedi in theaters, to August. That's what? April, May, June, July, August. 5 months. That's it. This time we get a theatrical release in May. We don't get a home video release until the next year. So we're talking 1999 to 2000. And in 2000, even though DVD was growing as a format, it had not yet hit Star Wars, apparently, because in 2000 we did not get a DVD version of The Phantom Menace, leading to an oddball purchase of mine, similar to one that we saw in 2000 when we looked back at the classic trilogy VHS and eventually VCD releases here. So, what did we actually get in 2000? Well, if you were just looking for a regular VHS tape of the film, this is what you could find. It is a full-screen edition. Got your logo there, Star Wars Episode 1 underneath it. Okay. Doesn't say Phantom Menace, notice. Just says Episode 1. Found that somewhat odd in this case here. Got Darth Maul on one side, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on the other. Got your logo and name up there on the top. It is a bottom-loading one, of course. Cool back stuff there. By the way, it's got the whole every generation has a legend, etc., based off the trailer and such here. This is a full-screen, very easy to acquire VHS version of the film, but it's full screen, and it's just VHS. Not really the ideal way to pick it up at the time if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan. Now, there are people who will claim online, and I have never found any actual evidence that this is true, that you could buy a widescreen edition on VHS as a standalone tape too. Widescreen up at the top, and notice that the art between the two is different. One's kind of boxed, like a full screen would be. The other one is wide with the pictures of the characters rearranged. You see these sometimes pop up on eBay as individual discs for sale, or individual tapes, for sale. See, it's the widescreen one from 2000. How can you pass that up? The thing about it is they all say the same thing at the bottom. Special Collector's Edition. That is a good indicator. Ding, ding, ding. Warning. This is not a standalone VHS tape. This is from a special collector's set. That was the only way you could legally buy a widescreen version of Phantom Menace in 2000. Stop trying to sell these as if they're a separate product, eBayers. On the tape itself, similar logo to the other, just says widescreen at the bottom. The box, the widescreen thing up at the top is different. Back is pretty much the same here. The sides, the same, except for the widescreen thing. But it is kind of cool that they changed the layout of that image there. I've always thought that was a nice touch. But this was part of a bigger package. That bigger package looked like this. Okay, says Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, or Star Wars The Phantom Menace with a little 1 behind it, widescreen video collector's edition. And we got our image there, more like it appears on the VHS full screen edition, actually. Says the same thing on the side, same thing on the side, nothing on the bottom or the top. On the back, tells you what's in this thing, which is pretty cool, the widescreen collector's edition. The only way, again, to get this in widescreen on VHS at the time. Inside this cool box, little Naboo scene going on there, you have a small Art of book. The Art of Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, an excerpted little version of the bigger Episode 1 art book that you can buy. Very much like that Art of the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition art book that was inside the limited edition VHS set in 1997 to go with the special editions. Also like that set, there is a film cell inside, or a set of film cells, a little chunk, and it's anamorphic widescreen though, so it's kind of squished and weird looking. Mine happens to be from part of the pod race in this case. Nothing cool on the back or anything like that. It just has the name. There's no special information on here. Another thing that's kind of cool about this release, the widescreen special edition version, is that it includes a special documentary that's not on the full screen version called Filmmaking Has Turned a Corner. It's about 15 minutes long, and it talks a lot about the impetus for Lucas developing the digital technology so that through ILM they can create characters and backgrounds and things that they otherwise couldn't do with practical effects. Basically sort of tooting their own horn as far as the technology goes, but giving some behind the scenes as to the creation of digital characters that we see, of course, in Episode 1. Here's a brief bit from the beginning of that.
Because of the kind of stories I'm telling with Star Wars, I'm forced to move the medium forward in order to tell my stories. If I would stay in a more traditional kind of filmmaking, I wouldn't have to worry about any of this. After I finished the original series, I had been so frustrated with the fact that I couldn't really do a lot of things that I'd imagined. I was stuck with rubber puppets. I was stuck with people wearing rubber masks. And it was very limited in how I could actually tell a story.
So a cool documentary and something you can only find on this release. It is not collected on the DVD later. And that's it. Not nearly as high-priced or thrill-filled as what we got with that gigantic set back in '97 for 3 films, but kind of neat. So if you were looking for a widescreen version of the film, you could pick it up, get a few little nifty extras with it, and not wind up breaking the bank in order to do so. I, of course, picked up both of these at the time because I was a hardcore collector, still am a hardcore collector of this kind of stuff, but certainly the widescreen one was the one I watched over and over again. That full screen one has probably been put in the VCR and played twice, if at all. Just isn't the way to watch Star Wars films anymore. Now, this was the year 2000. This was the same year that those VHS sets came out with a similar style to the VHS cases for the Phantom Menace for the classic trilogy. Those 2 box sets with the weird little plastic thing that goes over the top of them and everything. And as you may recall, in being excited about getting Star Wars films on DVD, but not immediately getting them, a lot of us went online looking for some importers who were selling VCDs, video compact discs, from the Malaysian market that were legitimate, legal releases, but ones that were not being sold usually in US markets except for online. Well, I fell into that same thing again this time. I want to see them and I want to be able to jump between them by clicking buttons on a media player. I don't want to have to fast forward. Fast forwarding sucks. Rewinding sucks. Oh, how spoiled we are these days compared to back in my childhood. In this case, the Phantom Menace on VCD was a 2-disc edition, very much like the 2 discs for each film in that box set from 2000 of the classic trilogy that I showed you a few episodes back from Malaysia, only this time there is no bigger box. This is Star Wars The Phantom Menace, Disc 1. Got Obi-Wan there with the battle showing in the background, and then we got our pod race arena. And then you got Disc 2 with Darth Maul on the front and Ota Gunga. You open them up, and you've got a little thing that tells you the chapter stops and such. There is nothing on the inside of this booklet. It's just chapter names, that's all. And you get this, which is basically the same image that you see on the VHS full screen case as far as the layout goes. It says Disc 1. And Disc 2, pretty much the same thing. Different image here, but again, chapter listing and same artwork on the disc. It just says Disc 2, just like the disc artwork matches on that 2000 set for the classic trilogy in all the films cases. On the VCD release, you get a trailer for Fox Interactive, but otherwise nothing. And of course, because it's a VCD, just like with Laserdiscs or with CEDs, you got to switch out discs, in those cases flip, but in this case switch out discs in order to see the entire film. The film actually splits basically right before the Dark Eye probe droids come back to Maul as he then takes off after Qui-Gon and Anakin when they're on the way back to the ship on Tatooine. So it does split right there, kind of midpoint of the film. Now, again, this is another one of these, the VCD at least, that has a questionable counterpart out there. Supposedly, there are also some Asian releases of these, not Malaysian, but more like a East Asian releases as opposed to Southeast, that includes one that is most notably from Hong Kong with some different stuff, and it has a bigger case that these go into, a bigger like cardboard box type thing that these go into, kind of like that widescreen edition, but I've yet to be able to verify whether this is actually a legitimate one or a bootleg. I've seen maybe one or two floating around. That's about it. I'd love to see the backside to see whether or not it actually shows the right stuff, or if it's like most bootlegs that have, it from Paramount Pictures, which has nothing to do with it, as seen on ESPN for all we freaking know, and, starring all these people that are listed, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, that has nothing to do with the film. All those bootlegs with the material that's just stupid. It's from that era, so I'd be interested to see whether that is actually legitimate. I'm not a VCD collector, though, so my VCD collecting stopped here. The classic trilogy set, this one, I'm done with VCDs, because the very next year, we finally got The Phantom Menace on DVD in 2001. Now, obviously, 2001 will be forever remembered as the year of 9/11. It is a dark time for the United States, and certainly a lot of things changed for us in that year. But for Star Wars fans, there is one bright spot in this, and that it's also the year that Star Wars finally made the jump from its previous incarnations, which have been on VHS, briefly Beta, briefly CED, and Laserdisc, to finally enter the DVD realm. But it's not the classic trilogy. That won't happen for another 3 years. The first Star Wars DVD ever is The Phantom Menace, actually followed a year later by The Phantom Menace again alongside the release of Attack of the Clones, because they originally released it in gold boxed, or gold lettering, whatever you want to call it, gold barred, widescreen only. Yes, widescreen's where it's at for DVD, full screen sucks. That's why this is gold and this is blue. You don't rate silver or bronze, in this case with full screen on DVD. But anyway, you get this one. Nice, get your information on the back. We'd waited for this for a whole year after already having it on VHS. Of course, this is in widescreen format, but we wanted extras, and we got extras. Just by way of comparison, the top there says every saga has a beginning. This one, pretty much the same setup, except it's in blue, only this one doesn't say that, it just says full screen up at the top. The other ones say widescreen or full screen. The only one that says something different is The Phantom Menace that says every saga has a beginning up on top. They hadn't quite finalized what the look was going to be for these. Now, if you look inside, we've got some cool stuff. We've got Disc 1. Doesn't get noted as widescreen. There, the mall face. Turn it over. We've got the bonus materials, Disc 2. Again, not noted as widescreen or anything like that, because it's just bonus materials, most of which are already, if they're meant to be. You open up the full screen one, the bonus disc looks pretty much the same. The other disc is actually labeled as full screen. That's right, we have finally turned a corner where, unlike some of those earlier VHS releases, it's not widescreen you gotta call out as different. It's full screen now, and that's not gonna last. There will be very few releases of full screen DVDs compared to widescreen, and that is a trend that has disappeared for the most part entirely at this point. There are little inserts in here, though, that tell us what it is that you're going to get on the discs. Cool little bit there. Chapters for the disc on the back. Now, if you open it up, it tells you all about the different little bits you're going to get to see with the DVD. Get the most out of your Episode 1 DVD. This was a DVD player seller at the time. A killer app, but a killer film for that medium, to get people to actually go out and buy DVD players instead of just sticking with VHS. So what do you get as bonus features? Well, you get trailers. You get the teaser trailer, the theatrical trailer, the Duel of the Fates music video trailer, and you get the TV spots, or weird trailers, like the 2 regular TV spots and the 5 bizarre tone poems, right? It will be a hard life. Fear attracts the fearful. Whatever. Weirdos. Disc 1 includes an audio commentary, and Disc 2, which is all bonus material, has those trailers along with deleted scenes. There are 7 of them that you can watch individually, and there's also a combined form where you can watch them all. It's kind of a documentary about them, talking about the individual deleted scenes. I thought that was kind of cool. We also have the special called The Beginning, talking about the making of The Phantom Menace. A bunch of web documentaries from StarWars.com. There are 12 of those. animatics, two animatics with an introduction, still galleries, production photos, print campaign stuff, posters, the making of the Starfighter video game, which I thought was kind of interesting to see. Lots of really cool stuff in this release. Documentary stuff, web stuff we've seen before, trailers, very, very cool. Now I should also note here that the DVDs don't just bring an enhancement to the video and sound and give you a bunch of extras that you don't get on VHS. There were changes made. 'Cause it's Lucas, of course. There were changes made to the DVD as compared to the VHS release. You have the extras in a Senate scene changed in the background. Twi'leks versus cameos by production people. We get that air taxi scene built back into the film here. We get a longer introduction to the pod racers as the pod race begins. And we get some tweaks that give us more footage to actually see in the pod race, as if that sequence wasn't long enough to begin with. But this is essentially what amounts to sort of a special edition-ization, or whatever, of the Phantom Menace. Lucas went in and tweaked with the originals to make the special editions in '97, making that sort of a second iteration. Now we have a third iteration with the 2004 DVDs, and a fourth iteration with the Blu-rays, assuming you're not counting little tweaks in the beginning as other iterations of the things. Now, we've got the Phantom Menace doing the same thing. A first iteration in theaters and on VHS, now a second iteration on DVD, there will be a third on Blu-ray. Keeps tinkering with the films, and the Phantom Menace was not immune. So the Phantom Menace, still getting the widescreen and full screen treatment on VHS, getting VCDs, and getting DVD releases, albeit with full screen being kind of an afterthought a year after the original widescreen edition. Things are going to start to change here, though, as the landscape of home video keeps changing and VHS becomes less and less of a viable format if you're looking to make a profit. We'll check out Attack of the Clones in our next episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.